Hi there, and welcome to the first episode of Thinky Boxes, a show about clever games. Virginia is a first-person mystery adventure game set in the quaint Twin Peaksian town of Kingdom. And like all good mysteries, its narrative is winding, often confusing, and can be easily dismissed as dumb and overcomplicated. As the developmental debut from Variable State, Virginia throws you into the perspective of FBI agent Ann Tarver, tasked with a two-pronged investigation about both a missing child and an internal case involving your potentially rogue agent partner, Maria Halperin. The world you explore is pasteled, expressive, threatening, and forces you to grapple with some unexpected political issues beyond the typical remit of most adventure titles. A quick SEO check shows that people are still trading fiery hot takes on the symbolic subtext of Virginia because, well, there's quite a lot of it. What appears to be a simple mystery story slowly reveals itself to be a puzzle wrapped in an enigma, strapped to a table with Houdini handcuffs. Throughout my first play, I found myself constantly asking questions like, what's this key? Who's this? Who's that? Who's she? Why is everything red? What's the difference between a buffalo and a bison? Did the technology in the 90s really look like this? And why are those two men bald and not the other? What's he hiding? Secrets! And each of these elements come to play in their own unique and significant ways. Although some are just arbitrary bald men, Virginia has enough of these subtextual intrigues rooted in both real-life history and politics, as well as heaps of great game design to justify a 7-minute video on a game that's 6 months old. What's most striking about Virginia at first is that for such a narratively driven game, there's a stark absence of dialogue. By that I mean, there's no dialogue. Silence is the order of the day, and because of that, physicality becomes very important. Virginia doesn't use super advanced mocap to make its characters feel human. It relies on facial expressions and forces you to steer your attention toward how the characters move and react to one another. Take this breakfast scene for example. To avoid spoilers, the loose context here is that you've started to forge a relationship with your partner Maria after a rocky start. Anne, or you, is given 2 eggs, which is a universal gesture of friendship, an obvious implication. However, pay attention to the positivity of Maria's body language compared to here. As you can see, Maria is presented much stiffer and defensive. It's not a revolutionary observation, but I love the way the animators use limited character movement to supply so much emotional context in the absence of dialogue and narration. So this being an FBI adventure and all, let's talk about agency. Virginia pretty much plays itself because, bar the occasional tap of a button, Variable State want you to pay attention to how things are happening, as well as what's happening. It's maybe why the only game-like feature of Virginia that might actually feel game-like is collecting pointless flowers and being sworn at by righteous teenagers. However, I found the role-playing aspect of Virginia to be a mechanic in itself. For a game about the grey morality of federal institutions and the power of choice, your fate as Anne is ironically predestined. The only control you really have is the way that you, the player, choose to control the protagonist. Take this scene. The emotional context is that the chief is already forming an antagonistic role, but no matter how much you want to protect Maria, you, as Anne, will shake his hand. That's how the game is programmed. But how you behave using the control sticks and your point of view before inevitably pressing A changes the atmosphere and the way the story is told. The experience will be unique to you, depending on how you choose to characterize and control Anne, despite it having no effect on the story. So, do you shake with enthusiasm like the federal employee of the month you are? Or do you consider your actions with hesitance, weighing the implication of putting your career before your humanity? The handshake animation will always play the same, but how you feel as a player will differ moving forward in the game. The facial animations do leave some emotional ambiguity, but they're not so vague that it doesn't reinforce the impact of your role-playing. You might find yourself frustrated at times at how little control you have over the story, especially considering the speed at which scenes fly by. But take solace in the fact that you can frame the story and characterize Anne your way, with your own agency, and make it a unique experience just for you. And if you thought that was exciting and relevant, it's time for some political undertones. The nature of politics in Virginia is at the forefront of its story and characters. The game explores themes of corruption and institutional racism as you roleplay as a woman of colour working for a federal bureau. And there's a wealth to be said about the way variable state convey these political intricacies, but because of time constraints, I'll link some great pieces below that give the politics of Virginia the analysis and time it deserves. But let's examine one recurring symbol in the game that's deeply embedded in 19th century history. Having watched any trailers or footage to this game, you might have noticed the recurring appearance of buffalo. The true significance of these mighty bovine lie in the parallels between the mistreatment of Maria as a woman and person of colour in a white institution with the slaughtering of an estimated 50 million bison in the 19th century. You see, the US federal government, being the imperial state are/were, wanted to declare war on the American Indians by cutting their food supply and forcing them to be more dependent on American traders for their needs. Many military scholars recognise this as a way of restricting the autonomy of indigenous people. In feminist school of thoughts, especially black feminism, restricted autonomy is inextricably tied to issues of race. With Maria, there's a constant mistrust and restricting of her character's agency throughout the entire game. Antava, or you, is more or less forced to work with the institution and against Maria to confirm the Bureau's prejudices, while simultaneously making Anne dependent on the Bureau for the sake of her career. The buffalo is a symbolic manifestation of Anne's guilt. Author and activist Bell Hooks once said that if any female feels she needs anything beyond herself to legitimize and validate her existence, she is already giving away her power to be self-defining, her agency. And I don't think there's a better quote to encapsulate the political power struggles of Virginia and make variable states debut one of the most cerebral and relevant games of last year. Thanks for watching.